All right, welcome to another insightful episode of The Beam where curiosity meets conversations. I'm Sunes Nathaniel, and today we're going a step further into conversations around social media. We're going to also be looking at what is the true state of the Dango Refinery as regards the petroleum sector. These are the things we're going to be looking at today. You're all welcome. To kick this off, I'm joined here by Amina Sani, and she is a legal practitioner and a senior state counselor at the FCTA. She'll be shedding some light on the prevalence of human rights violations on social media as reflection of the society today. Also, we're going to be going straight up into that conversation, and when we come back from our first break, we'll then bring in the next guest who would also be speaking then on what is going on in the petroleum sector. But for now, let us welcome Amina Sani. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
All right, that's great. Now, let's get right into it. You see, there's this prevalence of, cyberbullying, rights violation all over social media. And then the question will be, is it a reflection of the society, or could it be that it is that space, that the social media space avails people, the chance to just violate people's rights? Which of it are we experiencing right now?
Well, I think that subject is all-encompassing because both elements contribute greatly to it. Where unfortunately, we live in a society that celebrates mediocrity. We live in a society that no longer rewards speaking out positivity. There's a lot of toxicity that is promoted and instilled. And because the digital space is open to the public, people violate that and see it as an avenue to just be careless with remarks, And because there are no real consequences for speaking out carelessly on social media, people get away with it. But there are ripple effects, long-term ripple effects of those hurtful speech people take advantage of.
Yeah.
So we can't just blame it on the environment. We also blame it on social media itself. Social media promotes, it's a digital space, no doubt. It has its pros, it has its cons. But most times, people fashion their lives on what they see. I mean, the mind is like a sponge. It absorbs whatever it sees, whatever it's told, whatever it's informed. So when people are invested in social media and what social media promotes, it's only natural for people to want to be too invested that they don't even make a comparison with reality from social media. So there's always that war ongoing. Unfortunately, it has long-term dangerous effects on people. You see how it affects people's mental health. You see how it affects interpersonal relationships with others. You start to fashion your life based on what you've seen. And the reason why you are a person lets what others say get to them because social media or the digital age we live in tells us that if you don't get validation from social media or people, then you're not doing the right thing. So there's the pressure. Unless you have emotional intelligence or you are able to decipher the difference between reality and what's on social media, then you can live your life the way you ought to.
All right, let's get into some. You're a legal practitioner.
Yes, I am.
But you've said something about people getting away with, maybe the hate speeches, maybe the bullying, the cyberbullying, maybe, violation of human rights on social spaces. Are you saying that there are no laws that are guiding those operations right now? There are no laws for which people can be held accountable for their actions on social media. Is that what you're saying, or you're saying they are not working?
Okay, so it's not like there are no laws, but there are no direct laws that guide social media use. That's why sometimes you see content that are unfiltered, that is put on the digital space, that can be easily accessible to minors, old, young. No real consequences, no real laws guiding what is put out there. But however, there's a Cyber Crimes Prohibition Preventive Enforcement Act of 2015 that guides some of the rudiments of engagement on social media. And it's just a lot, you know. There are actually, even though people are trying to leverage on their constitutionally guaranteed right to freedom of expression as stated in Section 39, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution, which guarantees one's right to expression. However, the Constitution does not justify defamation. It does not justify damage to one's reputation. It does not justify bullying in any form. That's not what the Constitution is saying. Even though you have the right to express, there are still laws or there are still rudiments of engagement. For example, in the law of thought, under the law of thought, defamation, even though the word cyberbullying is not enshrined there, it can be seen as defamation.
Okay.
Defamation is a form of cyberbullying. However, to establish that you are a victim of cyberbullying, 3 elements must be established. 1, the plaintiff has to establish that that information that was put out there is false. 2, the plaintiff has to establish that the information that has been put out there would cause potential damage to them. And 3, it must be established that it was released to the third party. Who is the third party? Me and you. The minors, the young, anybody who has access to it. You put out a dangerous information out about somebody, and then the person sues you. The person, if the plaintiff can establish those 3 key elements, the person has a case. Do you understand? So even though there are certain stipulations on consequences for violation, especially for defamation, there's an option of 3 years, there's an option of paying fine of 7 million, but is it really worth it? It's not, compared to the damage that has been done. Because you cannot buy back a person's reputation. You ruin a person's reputation, reputation that has been built for years.
Over years.
And you think that you can just compensate with a fine or with being imprisoned
almost
or
like a slap on the wrist.
Exactly. So there needs to be real consequences real laws that guide the information being put out there, the access to social media.
Okay, so in your own, having researched on this topic and all that, in your, it's become that public domain for everybody. So how can individuals continually now protect themselves from, rights violations? And again, what roles can, legal practitioners play in this sense? Maybe educating the people more, and maybe how do you come in to defend people in those cases and all this? People need to be held accountable as we speak, but how do people themselves protect themselves from being violated? Their rights being violated or infringed upon?
Okay, so I thank you very much for that question. I believe a level of sensitization should happen from schools, from institutions, from religious institutions. Instilled in the people, instilled in children, the consequences of using your voice for the wrong reasons. Don't think that because you have access to social media, it's an avenue to bully anybody or intimidate anyone or threaten anyone, or just, trying to make a person feel uneasy with himself. You're not God. You don't have any reason to do that. There needs to be more. I believe that there should be a program in the school's curriculum that encourages children to be positive, to be aware, yes, have the educational benefits of social media, have the information. Social media is not a bad thing. It's not completely a bad thing, but how do you misuse it? How do you use it? Do you misuse it? Is it positive? Is it constructive? Is it destructive? These are things. So there should be real sensitization happening in various institutions, even in the home. Even in the home. Because sometimes, if you look at these bullies, they are a reflection of the homes they come from. You didn't grow up with love. You now want to extend it to others. Why? Do you understand? So it's important that sensitization, like they say, charity begins at home. Start from home. Instill in your kids the need for them to not be out there causing harm to people. And give them the right attitude to be positive. Because, I mean, if you cannot give what you don't have.
All right. I think we're just going to hold it there. We'll take a short break, a 1-minute break. And when we come back, our next guest is going to be discussing the true role of the Dangote Refinery in Nigeria's petroleum sector and what it holds for the Nigerian people. Stay with us on The Beam. Joining us now via Zoom is Ayodele Adio. He's the lead strategist at Adio Strategy and Communications. And we're going to be discussing a subject that impacts every Nigerian, the availability, affordability, and distribution of petrol, as well as the true role of Dangote Refinery in addressing our fuel needs. Ayodele, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get right into it. Let's begin by saying, what is the importance? Many Nigerians have assumed that, hey, once Dangote goes on stream, drastically, there will be a price drop, right? And then the question then will be, what then really is the impact of the refinery? And what is he expected to do for the Nigerian people? How does it shape the availability, and affordability of fuel? Because that's where we're all crying. It's a very important issue. What really is the role of the Dangote refinery in the scheme of things? And what should Nigerians expect?
Well, first, let's deal with the pricing issue, because there's been this misconception that the Dangote refinery is supposed to crash the price of petrol, or in fact, that the reason why the cost of petrol seems to be going up is largely because of the Dangote refinery, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The primary reason why the prices of petrol continue to soar at the pump is because of the depreciation of the currency. The value of our currency has dropped by close to 65% in the last 18 months. And that is the primary driver of the cost of petrol at the pumps. And I guarantee you that if today the Naira appreciates by close to 65%, you are likely to see a drop in close to 50% in the price of petrol at the pumps. So I think it's important to clarify that the cost of petrol is a macroeconomic issue, and except we fix the macroeconomic fundamentals that weakens our currency or that depreciates the value of our currency, we're not likely to see a decline in the pump price of petrol across the country. Now, to your other half of the question, where you talked about what the Dangote refinery is supposed to serve the Nigerian people with, of course, to a very large extent, it not only guarantees a level of energy security, but it also guarantees a level of availability and will help to deal with the persistent queues that we deal with every now and then, as a country. But above all, the strategic and most important thing that it does for us is that it saves us, from the level of forex exposure that our country embarks on, especially from the importation of petrol. Right? And of course, it helps us, to surge our foreign reserves in terms of the exportation of not just petrol from the refinery, but all the derivatives, from that same, in terms of fertilizer, and all sorts of derivatives from the refinery. That will guarantee earnings in forex for the country. So it's playing a strategic role in reducing our foreign exchange exposure. It's stimulating the local economy. It's creating thousands of jobs. And of course, it's helping us also drive exports to earn foreign exchange in significant numbers. So that, for me, sums up the benefits of that particular refinery.
All right. I mean, it's brilliant that you've said that. And but you see, there are people who are saying, you said something about the whole import and export thing. And then you have marketers who are saying, hey, we can bring in petrol at a much cheaper rate. And people are saying, hey, why not allow this happen? Is it not supposed to be, fair competition, beautiful competition that can help the price, become cheaper, because we can now buy, like, some of the other things we are buying from different vendors, from different producers, basically. So it's expected that if many people are producing and selling, then the price can be very, free, way better for the normal Nigerian person to just buy from anybody who they can buy from. So what do you think about that concept?
Well, firstly, let us deal with the competition thing, right? I'm all for competition. I'm all for a market economy that encourages competition, which will definitely push prices down in the long term. But what a healthy competition will mean is that the federal government, or the NNPC, does its part in getting on our refineries that are moribund on stream. That means they get to fix the Port Harcourt refinery, they get to fix the Warri and the Kaduna refinery, And once these refineries come on stream, they provide the context for which you can have healthy competition with the Dangote refinery. But more importantly, it creates and boosts our local economy because it means that we're driving production locally and not having to import inflation into our country. Now, the argument by certain marketers who claim that they can import petrol at a price lower than the Dangote refinery is extremely laughable because if you looked at news reports, as at last year, the NNPC had claimed that the landing cost of petrol was about 1,300 naira per liter. Earlier this year in July, the Energy Association, Marketers Association had claimed that the landing cost of petrol was 1,117 naira per liter. Now, I don't know the miracle that any importer wants to perform to be able to import petrol at 800 naira per liter, except of course that petrol, is substandard,
okay,
and it's poor quality. And there's an argument to make that most of the petrol that we import in this country are of poor quality. And you don't need to look further than the report that was published by Volkswagen when they exited the Nigerian market. And one of the reasons that they gave for leaving the Nigerian market was the fact that they argued that most of the petrol that we import in this country is of low quality, capable of harming the engines that they are going to be producing and selling. So we've had to deal with poor petrol over the years in this country, dirty fuel that causes environmental pollution and that knocks generator engines every now and then. So if that's the kind of petrol that is being imported at a more cheaper rate, then of course that's being counterproductive, right? So what is healthy competition, what healthy competition will mean is getting the refineries that we have to work and to compete with the Dangote refinery locally and consequently push down prices. But what have we seen? We've spent $1.5 billion on the turnaround of the Port Harcourt refinery and nothing to show for it. In fact, the National Assembly have said they were going to be probing the 11.1 trillion that has been spent on turnaround maintenance. But that's the reality. We've spent millions, trillions of naira in trying to turn around these refineries, and today none of them gets to work. Rather, instead of the conversation to be about getting those refineries to work, we seem to be making a case for the continuous importation of petrol, which is harming our economy, which is importing inflation, which is, exposing us, to foreign exchange volatility. And in the long run, it's putting us in a very, very bad spot. And I don't think that should continue.
Well, I was going to ask you what the solution was, but it sounds like you just gave a solution there. I think that's, perhaps in just one sentence, you will tell us what you think we should do to get this nation to have that fuel in which the ordinary Nigerian is not dying to buy.
Well, I mean, a lot of things need to happen in the medium and the long term. I think in the short term, what we need to do is to encourage local production, right? And encourage local production. Unfortunately, at the moment, none of our refineries is working except for the Dangote refinery. And what we need to do is to guarantee feedstock in naira and to perhaps peg the price so that we insulate it from volatility.
All right.
The second thing that we most likely have to do, of course, is to find a way to get our other refineries, to start working. And once we do that, and we fix our macroeconomic fundamentals where our currency can start to gain value when we begin to export products with a little more value addition, that way our currency will strengthen, our foreign reserves will be boosted, and that you see prices come down significantly over the next few years. That, for me, is the way to build a healthy economy going forward.
All right. Let me come back here into as the studio. We had a guest and we had a conversation about, rights violation. There's been recent issues of right violation, including the one in Equatorial Guinea. There is a saying that, there was a rights violation that played out there. What's your take on that?
Well, indeed, even though it happened, it was unfortunate, but the truth is, these are human beings. It's not something that should be out there because the internet never forgets. Social media never forgets. No matter the elevation he gets to or decides to just sweep it under the rug, it will have a ripple effect. It will have a lasting effect on him and his family. So that outcry, I think, is timely, even though it violates every principle of human engagement and human relations, having to see your nudes on social media. The whole world has seen it, not just with one person, with different people. So if he decides to
seek legal redress?
Yes, he does have a chance.
All
He
right.
does have a chance.
All right. Thank you, Amina, and thank you, Ayodele, who's left. And I'm thanking you guys for sharing your perspective on these very important issues. And I'm hoping people are learning and people are having something to go home with so that we can make it a better society.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Friends, that wraps up today's episode of The Beam. Hope our conversation has sparked a new understanding of the challenges and possibilities in our digital and economic landscape. Until next time, I am Sunes Nathaniel, and this has been The Beam. As usual, we'll be leaving you with our top 5 videos of the week. And always remember to stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged, stay blessed, Nigeria. In 5th place, we hear Nigerian physician and politician Donyo Kukwe argue that Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party was wrong to have called out Yorubas in his latest interviews.
If all these Yoruba, eminent Yoruba people supported you, why now bring us down publicly? It's wrong.
Coming forth on our list is a full clip of the one-on-one conversation with Mr. Donyo Kukwe, who was on our flagship program, Politics Today.
Rise as
that
even when it does wrong.
I didn't say when it does wrong.
In 3rd place is a bite in which we see Donald Trump assure Americans that his government will help the nation heal.
Needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country.
In 2nd place, Senator Ndume bluntly states that President Bola Tinubu's tax reform bills came dead on arrival at the National Assembly.
But if it goes on like that, I can tell you that it will be dead on arrival.
Clinching the top spot on our countdown this week is a brief report on our News at 10 regarding the visit of the First Lady to the wife and children of the late Chief of Army Staff, General Taoreed Lagbaja.
They were received by the wife of the Chief of Defense Staff, Mrs. Ogogo Musa.
That's it on our countdown today. Please join us next week for more.